Hello, my name is Dr. Clive Werrett and I'm the Corporate Health and Safety Manager for Worcestershire County Council. I run a small team of 6 health and safety advisors and assistants, providing help, advice and systems for managing health and safety. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of the requirements for managing health and safety in schools. No doubt this will raise questions. This video delivery doesn't give much opportunity for Q&A, and we will pick this up individually and via school visits by the health and safety team. You'll be pleased to know that I'm not going to go into any detail about health and safety legislation. There isn't time in 10 minutes to detail anything about the 50 plus pieces of legislation that apply. You should already be aware of the Health and Safety Act though, and various other provisions that come out of health and safety legislation, such as risk assessment. What we'll do is pick up the key elements later in this presentation. The first of these is accountability and responsibility. I'll expand on this in the next section, but it can be confusing. I'll then talk about safe working environments, and there will be some overlap here with what will be discussed in the property presentation, mainly because statutory compliance and planned preventative maintenance are health and safety legislation. We'll also cover policies, procedures, emergency plans and business continuity, and finally the systems that we use, Cority and Evolve, for managing accident reporting, audits and inspections, and planning and managing school visits. So, accountability and responsibility. As I said, allocating accountability and responsibility can be confusing. This is partially because the descriptors used in the legislation can be difficult to follow, and because the way schools are set up and run by the council and with the involvement of WCF also adds a further layer of complication. Very simply, for maintained schools, these are community schools and voluntary controlled schools, Worcestershire County Council is the employer, and in most cases we own the land and the buildings. Simple and straightforward, you would think, but it is complicated by devolved budgets. Since 2012, schools have received the majority of government grant, the DSG, and this has brought with it a level of responsibility and accountability for how that money is spent. Effectively, schools have become semi-autonomous and in some ways can be thought of as small and medium enterprises. This has been recognised by the Health and Safety Executive. Several schools have found this out to their cost by being prosecuted individually, even though the local authority did have a role. A good example is asbestos, where the duty holder is, and I quote, every person who has by virtue of contract or tenancy an obligation of any extent in relation to the maintenance or repair of non-domestic premises, or any means of access or egress to or from those premises. As you can see immediately, having a devolved budget and being able to open up and close the school makes you a duty holder. I'll not go into detail, but there is an obvious requirement for the head teachers and governors to manage asbestos in their school. There's a lot more to this, and I'm not going to go into any detail, but please do contact us and we will discuss it with you. Right. One of the things which we always stress is, and I'm sure you'll agree for education, that we need a safe working environment. I've been in this game for over 20 years, and I must admit, if you get a safe working environment, then basically you have a lower risk of an accident or an incident occurring. Unfortunately, I do see examples on a regular basis where the basic statutory requirements have been ignored. Sometimes it's due to the age of the building, and often it is because of neglect. A failure to provide resources to address a minor defect can spiral into something more serious. Of course, there are pressures on budgets, and money spent on maintenance and repair is invisible compared with a new, bright, shiny item of equipment. Nevertheless, we must make sure that we maintain our buildings in a fit state to provide education. It's not difficult if you identify the hazards and deal with them when you find them. Broadly speaking, you have a building structure, its infrastructure, the equipment within it, and the activities that you perform, the tasks that you undertake, and you need to assess these on a regular basis. You've guessed, assessment, but also regular audits, inspections by yourselves, not relying necessarily on other people. You can ask others for help, and there are already procedures and systems in place. So we have the 5-year condition surveys which are done. But these are 5 yearly. You need to keep on top of things as and when they happen. WCC, as the owner of the land and buildings, has an interest in making sure that the structure and infrastructure is in good condition. And I mentioned these condition surveys. I'm not going to say any more about this because property is the next presentation where those events will be covered, and basically there is an oversight by the council which looks at this in greater detail. What schools need to focus on is the safety of the equipment they use and the activities and tasks they do. However, we do strongly recommend regular, i.e. termly, site inspections down to classroom level to identify any damage or defects that haven't already been spotted and dealt with. Risk assessment is a statutory requirement and shouldn't be a stranger to anyone since it's part of living. If I mention Marlowe's hierarchy of need, that should ring bells for everybody. The key here is writing a good risk assessment and implementing reasonably practical measures to reduce the risk. And I just want to focus on this reasonably practicable for a moment. This is a legal requirement. It means that we are goal setting in our legislation and the way that we interpret it. We have some leeway to decide how to control hazards and reduce risks. Reasonably practicable is the way that we balance risk and cost. Unfortunately, there's no easy guide to what's reasonably practicable since it is case dependent, and in the end, the courts are the ultimate decision makers on whether what you've done goes far enough. I'll now talk a little bit about policies and procedures. You need your own health and safety policy. I expect your school already has one, and you will need to review this. It is set out in about 4 or 5 sections, so there must be an overall statement of intent signed by yourself and the governors saying what you're going to do about managing health and safety in broad terms. You'll need to set out your organisational structure for managing health and safety. This may mean that you devolve some of your responsibilities for health and safety down to a business manager. You'll also need to have an arrangement section where you deal with things like how you manage health and safety hazards, the systems that you use, the competence of your staff, how you consult them, and things like your emergency preparedness. So these are the way that you report accidents and incidents, the way that you manage evacuations. You also need to specify how you monitor and review what goes on in the school. Now, we can help you with all of this because we do have bespoke policies and procedures for schools. We also have templates and plans which you can plagiarize, which you can use to develop your own individual emergency plans and plans for dealing with situations. Also, we have some management systems. I would recommend you to buy the Health and Safety Service Level Agreement. Basically, this gives you access to my team and me, if you so wish, and also to all the policies and procedures and the systems, the electronic systems that we use. And I think this is really important because COVID has caused us to rethink the way that we deal with our customers. So we will be doing a lot more digitally, and the way that we do this is through the Cority system. You will see it as My Cority, and the Evolve system for off-site visits. I'm going to finish there. I hope you found the presentation informative. If you need further clarification or advice, then please call me or email one of the health and safety team. Thank you for listening. Stay safe.